10 of the Focus Cup this weekend as we get ready to get underway. Formation lap already afoot as they head their way around the Donington Park circuit. I'm Lewis McLean and I'll be guiding you through this race on what has turned into a beautiful afternoon here at Donington Park. Of course, the race earlier was won by Lewis Clark in a fantastic performance, dominant performance to be perfectly honest, and he'll set his sights on taking victory again, but obviously won't be doing it from pole position courtesy of how the reverse grid works. And this, the second race, is made up of grids where they've reversed in blocks of 6. So 1st through 6th have been reversed, then 7th through 12th have been reversed, 13th through 18th have been reversed, 19th remains where they are because 19th and 20th can't be reversed. Because there's only a 19th on the grid. Unfortunately, car number 27 has been withdrawn. We'll cover that one off in a second. What this means is Simon will be starting from pole position with Mark McCann alongside Simon Watts, and Richard Hall will be lining up on row number 2. Then we get Jonathan Baker and Lewis Clark, the top 2 from the previous race, with Abby Walton starting from 7th position and Katrina Gray starting from 8th. In 9th position on row number 5, it will be Simon Langford and Andrew Visa, who will be starting from the final position inside the top 10. William Lincoln and Antonio Casillo, who received a penalty for exceeding track limits, which actually seems to have cost him quite a lot because it's meant he finished the race in 7th and not 6th, and thus will start from 12th rather than the reverse grid pole. Down in 7th position, it will be Sarah Hall from 13th place, with Thomas Brown starting from 14th. Then it will be Darren Rickaby starting from 15th position, with Jamie Good starting from 16th place after a bit of a shame late on in that race. Ian Graham will be starting from 17th, obviously went down the escape road, and Gary Mitchell, who ended in the pit lane. Simon Wharton, who is testing, it was a test car I believe this weekend, was leading an awful lot late on in the race, came to the pit lane and retired late on, so will be starting from 19th, and to be fair, based on the pace, will likely win this race as well. We'll have to wait and see. You never know how these things unfold. But it will, of course, mean that this race will be very exciting. Obviously, you can see the sun there dropping down. Be a little bit awkward coming down towards Redgate. A little bit awkward coming down into the Melbourne hairpin as well, just where the sun is. But it's not too low, so it shouldn't be too badly in your driver's eyes. As you can see, 18.5 degrees. It's come up a few degrees from this morning. The wind has also dropped off about 10 kilometres an hour since this morning, earlier on this afternoon. About 10 kilometres an hour slower as well, which should mean the racing, I don't know whether it will be much better or not, just because of how the slipstream and stuff works. One thing we do know is because of how the reverse grid works, i.e. those reversing in groups of 6, we should have a bit of a thriller to end things here in Donington Park. Of course, do remember as well, still one more weekend of racing when they go racing in Snetterton in a few weeks' time to round out the championship. At the moment, though, things are pretty much set for Lewis Clark to wrap things up and become the Focus Cup champion of 2024, as he did last year as well. They're all in position and all basically ready to go. We just wait for the marshal to see everyone into their spots. Just double checking one of the things with the driver a few rows back. I believe, I'm just going to double check, I think it might be William Lincoln who he's having a bit of a chat with. Does look about 7 rows back. So I believe it will indeed be. Not sure exactly as to what's gone on there, but alas, there is communication between the marshal and the driver. You can see there about 7 rows back in the grid. Of course, for everyone else, they're probably sat there thinking, I actually don't know what's going on now. Why has this hold been so long? They all have to remain patient, stuck in the car. Another marshal coming out onto the circuit, and a couple of marshals. This does tell me it'll probably be an aborted start, meaning they'll have to do another formation lap, line up in the grid spots, and it won't be a 15-minute race. They'll generally take 2 to 3 minutes off of the race distance, if that is the case, although I don't know fully what the ruling is. That is a commentator chat and breeze, as the cool kids say. But we'll have to wait and see what the marshals adjudicate from this scenario. Whether the green flag will be way. If we just have a green flag, then we're all just straight up racing. And it does indeed look as though we are going to get a green flag. It has to be thrown and waved. It can't just be hung. So the marshals get themselves in position, or is he rolling it up? Rolling it up, never mind. We'll have to wait and see what the gantry will say. Obviously, it would be a 15-minute race if we were to go normally. Just waiting for the word from race control. All the drivers waiting on the grid. The green flag will wave from the marshal on the right, so not from the rear of the field. That is an aborted start. So they'll do another formation lap then and bring it back round. There will most likely be an adjustment to the length of the race, but again, we'll await that information from race control as they're given an extra green flag lap to work their way around. Still not 100% sure as to what it was. There's the 991 that I believe was a driver that was being spoken to, William Lincoln. I believe, not 100% sure, I believe that was the driver that the marshals were having a chat with. Clearly something wasn't quite right on that car. It could have been anything, maybe too far ahead of the box. I've honestly just had the realisation that I could have stood up and looked as I am sound to start finish straight. Clearly my brain cells aren't quite working. That's fine. We'll have to just wait for it. So on the formation up they go. Still remaining as a 15-minute race distance at this present moment. And again, gives these drivers a little bit more time to work some temperature into the tyres. We'll note the track temperature is still relatively low. Of course, the air temperature we saw there was around the sort of almost pushing into the 20s. With it being a little bit warmer, it should mean that tyre warm-up's not going to be that much of a problem, especially with a day of racing, allowing those tyre temperatures to work their way up bit by bit. And so, yeah, we saw a couple of moments, particularly from Jonathan Baker, if you remember in the previous race, where Jonathan Baker had a bit of a moment going into the old hairpin. And it was, I would say, a bit of a moment. It was quite a sizable moment. It's what actually caught out Jamie Good, who was directly behind. I still don't know exactly what happened with Jamie Good's car, but it was coughing out a lot of smoke coming up towards McLean's. But you know, that's the kind of bit that I don't think we'll see as much of in this race. Not as much larger moments going down into that part of the circuit at the old hairpin. They should actually be able to attack it with a little bit more confidence, with the temperature having risen ever so slightly. Believe then it will still be a 15-minute race once they've put themselves into position. We're the penultimate race of the day, so basically we can kind of do what we want as long as we're well within curfew. But I don't think there is a major curfew around Donington Park. We're not too close to much when it comes to housing, and they're all kind of fitting within the noise regulations of the area. So it's very different than a normal race weekend that I've seen, where they have a bit more carte blanche on certain bits and bobs. Either way, they work their way around. They've put the heat back into the tyres, and they've put the cars back into the grid. So waiting the marshal on the left-hand side there to wave the green flag and send the final race of the day underway. Just waiting for those drivers to work their way into position. A reminder of our top few drivers. Of course, it will be Simon Waugh, Mark McCann, then Simon Watts, Richard Hall, Jonathan Baker and Lewis Clark. Green flag is being waved, 15 minutes onto the clock, and the race about ready to get underway. The lights come on, the lights go out, and we are racing down into that first corner. Good start from our pole sitter and from the front row as everyone works their way up towards turn one. Look for the number one there on the right-hand side, and there's already contact down. That'll be Clark. Sorry, that is Jonathan Baker, who's already broken the suspension, got squeezed off a little bit, and now is helpless in the middle of the road. Jonathan Baker's struggling to get that car stopped, and that might end up being a safety car brought out. A lot of grass and gravel being kicked up on the exit of the first corner as they work their way down. The craners for the first time. Plenty of smoke being kicked up as well, as I think some bodywork rubbing has happened. It's also been, as there's been a recovery as well down that point. It's already kicked up a bit of dirt onto the circuit anyway. So grip will be at a premium as they head their way through the old hairpin for the first lap. Gray's being dropped back a little bit, and race leader now will be McCann as we head our way through. Bit of a slide on the rear end from McCann. There is Hall in the number 99. So Richard Hall's worked up from fourth position into second, and Lewis Clark looking to the inside. There goes Hall up for the race lead as they head their way into Coppice. Lewis Clark was trying to find some way through in all of that, looking for a second victory of the weekend. end. Meanwhile, it's Simon Watts there on the left-hand side of your screen, dropping backwards ever so slightly. Lewis Clark with the inside run of that #1 car, the pink and blue black liveried car on the right-hand side. Lewis Clark will settle for 4th position, and Simon Watts will be able to hang on. Sorry, it's not Simon Watts even, let me correct myself. It's Simon War who's in that 2nd spot. Here comes the 64 then to move their way through into the race lead. Mark McCann looking to retake it down the inside, coming in to the Melbourne hairpin. Simon War will follow their way through, big and deep on the brakes as they work their way through, and a lot of the that smoke, that telltale smoke being kicked up as they depart the corner, and a couple more dives in the background. There is the confirmation that the safety car has been deployed so that they can recover Jonathan Baker's car after a solid performance earlier on in the day with the 2nd place, which will help him in the championship up into 2nd position with Ian Mitchell's not being here. That is a big shame. You can see the length of that, the tyre mark on the start-finish straight. I believe it's just as they were 4 wide. It's just one of those awkward bits. Squeezed out a little bit onto the grass, but it did seem, at least from my my initial look, that they might Jonathan Baker might have driven onto the grass to make it 3 wide, which is already a bit of a no-no, but that's fine. But then I think it might have been a little bit of a front-to-rear contact. And to be fair, I'm surprised it broke the front left. You can see, obviously you can't see it from this side, but you saw as they came to a stop that I think it would have broken the rim. Almost so. Well, I would think it would have broken the rim. It almost certainly has broken the rim. Obviously, it's ripped the tyre straight off as well. It's one of the dramas of racing. Sometimes these things happen. I'm sure there'll be some focus that they can steal a wheel off that's been curbed ad nauseum, so it won't be too much of a major. But alas, it's not the way that you want to end the penultimate weekend of your season of racing, especially not that early. You know, you only get a 15-minute race, and to end it after 15 seconds, yeah, certainly not ideal as well. The recovery team, the marshals, removing that car, so hopefully this grid of focuses will go back racing at the end of this one as they pull that car to the exit of Redgate. Important to keep the tyres in the operating window and the cars in the operating window as well. It's one of those joys of club racing. You always get told stories by various people as to how to make cars and club racing go a little bit quicker, like turning on the heating and things like that. It's like, oh, does that all work? It's like, yeah, you get extra couple of brake horsepower, and at this kind of level, that really does make a huge amount of difference. I'm sure all these drivers will be well aware as to how to get these cars around the circuit as quick as possible. Safety car, still with the lights on. The lights will typically come off by the time we exit the Fogger ES, maybe even on the Starkey straight. Of course, the race control will be passing on that information to the safety team. And the safety car has been confirmed by me, or by me, to me, to be in this lap. It's confirmed by me as well, to you as well. The safety car will be in this lap, so the recovery team have taken Jonathan Baker's car and placed it off of the circuit. And so we can get racing again. The order at the moment then, it is McCann from War, from Richard Hall, from Lewis Clark, from Vice, who's actually done a really good job to get up to 5th position, by the way, from Watts, who's dropped back, unfortunately, from Abby Walton, from Rickaby, from Good, from Graham. Good's done a great job as well, done a good job, you might say, to move up into 9th position. Then from Graham, who's also worked his way up from the rear of the field, from Langford, from Casillo, then Lincoln, Brown, Gray, and then, of course, Mitchell Walton a little bit further down the order. Let's get ourselves racing, though, as the safety car will work its way back into the pit lane. 9 minutes and 40 seconds left to go of this race. It will leave us with 5 laps of racing here at the Donington Grand Prix circuit. We'll head down into the final corner and the race will be back underway. So McCann with the control will try and hold off and fend off Simon War at the front of the field. Already Lewis Clark going on the attack for 3rd position with a look down the inside on Richard Hall as we head down into the first corner. Can't quite make that one stick, so the #1 has to settle for 4th position for now. Back in the battle for 5th, it's still going to be Vice hanging on from Watts with the inside look. I think there's already been some drama. Is that a car going slow? Yes, it is. Not sure as to who it was. Into the gravel trap as well. Someone else goes, I think it might be Watts. Who was it? No, it was Vice, who's done such a good job as Vice to work their way up the the order, but unfortunately out into the gravel trap they're going to go, and dropping right the way down the order. There is the 99 taking the defence. That is Richard Hall. There is Lewis Clark directly behind. And Clark unable to find a way through at the moment. They work their way up towards the Schwantz curve, and then of course into McLean's. No switch between the pair at the moment, and it still will be the 99 taking that slightly wider line as they head their way through McLean's, and now all the way up into Coppice, the highest point of the circuit. Flicks it through the right-hander, down with the brakes, chucks it in, and hopes the car will grip just about enough as they head their way through Coppice. Battle for the race lead sees McCann and War separated by not too much, just a few tenths of a second. And then a bigger gap back to Lewis Clark, who looks to the inside, heading down into the Fogarty S. Not going to fancy that one. Takes a slightly wider line then. Tries to throw in with a little bit extra speed and make the move as they head down into the Melbourne hairpin. That is exactly what Lewis Clark was going for. Hall was a little bit too slow there. And here comes Lewis Clark, championship leader, down the inside. The champion-elect, really, as he heads through into third position right now. Tries to charge his way back onto the rear end of Simon Waugh and settles for that spot on the podium right now. But I think he won't be settling in 7 minutes and 35 seconds for third place. Desperately would like a victory. Heard a car in the pit lane, so we're not emptying here, but I think that's Gary Mitchell who's just worked his way into pit lane. And there you can see that car leaving pit lane, being told by the marshals there is faster cars coming, so you might want to stop just here on the exit of pit lane and then rejoin the race circuit. It's exactly what's going to happen. That is Gary Mitchell rejoining the race circuit. The car that was slow on the inside on the safety car restarts. There's been a bit of work being done to his vehicle as he rejoins the racetrack. Already Lewis Clark hunting down on the rear end of Simon Waugh at the moment, just to try and find that way through. Different line coming into the old hairpin. Bit of a slide from the pair of them on the rear end, especially from Lewis Clark though, as he fumbles for grip and sets the fastest first sector of the race. Was faster in the first sector than the top two by 0.6 of a second, and has already come through then into second. Very impressive from Lewis Clark, the driver destined to become the 2024 champion, although I'll hold off on the maths because I think, to be fair, I think it probably already is counted as the 2024 champion based on the previous race results, because obviously get top points from qualifying and from the previous race, so probably already has the number one stamped onto the car, ready for 2025. As you can see, it's the into the driver's eyes. That's how much they're getting blinded by the sun on the way down into the Fogarty S. Spot your braking zone and chuck it in. Throw it over the curb and hope for the best that the car sticks on the exit of the corner. Run it all the way out to the curb as Lewis Clark closes down on the race leader. The fastest first sector, you'll not be too shocked to know, has been taken away from Lewis Clark. And yes, it will indeed be by Simon Walton, who of course set the fastest lap in the previous race by about 3.5 years. It was that quick. I think it was 6 seconds. But of course, it's a test car. It's doing something different. But alas, is still going to work his way through and make things exciting. As Simon Walton is absolutely flying around this circuit. Across the line then, it is going to be McCann leading with 3 laps left to go in this race. A 1:58.8. The car behind of Lewis Clark was 1.6 seconds faster on the previous run around this 2.5 mile circuit. And you get the feeling this is well, it's going to change pretty soon as they head their way down into the Craner curves. But can the 64 of McCann hang on to the race lead right now? Can they keep Lewis Clark at bay? Almost clips that bollard on the inside. It certainly had some movement on it as they worked their way through the old hairpin. This is where Lewis Clark got through into second position, being blocked at the moment as McCann's trying to keep Clark at bay. They head their way up the hill into the Schwantz curve, now into McLean's, and McCann is able to hang on for now. Takes that tight line running through McLean's as they head now up towards Coppice. The inside line now, here's the look from Lewis Clark. Is this the move for the race lead? Commits onto the brakes and Clark sends it. The 2023 champion, about to become the 2024 champion, sends it through to take over the race lead. But is it enough to hold on to the top spot? At the moment, the advantage does seem to go the way of McCann. The number 64 and the number 1 going side by side. The outside line going into the Fogarty S, and who's going to be brave? Well, Lewis Clark certainly will do so. As McCann backs out, it is going to be second place for them. 4 minutes left to go. Will there be a switch as they head down into the Melbourne hairpin? Of course, Lewis Clark now heads the field. There comes the look, late on the brakes. Maybe going to go for the up and under as they depart the Melbourne hairpin, the penultimate corner of the circuit. Simon Waugh's also rejoined this fight. And it certainly is not done yet. Don't even count out Richard Hall, who currently sits in that 4th position, not too far away from rejoining the podium battle. And even maybe going for the race victory. Would take an awful lot and a mega final couple of laps for that to happen. Gary Mitchell will come back into the pit lane there just behind. So pit lane getting a little bit busy here in the Focus Cup. We saw a couple of issues in the previous race. The other one in the pit lane is Vice. Obviously went off at T1, did Vice. So both Vice and Mitchell in the pit lane. Baker out of the race after the early race incident. 2 laps left to go then. And the only switch on that lap there really was, well, up there for the race lead. And, of course, Walton getting past Langford, Brown and Casillo as that car is flying around the circuit. At the moment, then, it's Lewis Clark leading from McCann, from Waugh, from Richard Hall and from Good, who's got up into 5th position. So superb drive from the number 30 of Good. Jamie Good, he was so good in the first race as well. Unfortunately, with that car issue, the technical gremlin seems to be sorted for this race as they set their sights on the top 5. But I think the race victory and podium a little bit out of reach. If there was another safety car at a more convenient time for Jamie Good, then maybe there was a podium up for grabs. But right now, realistically, not. Behind that was Rickaby, then Walton, then Langford, then Brown, then Casillo across the line. No one's been exceeding track limits too much, so race control haven't had to step in. And they only had to do it once in the previous race, and that was for Casillo. As they head through the fog at ES, this is the battle for 2nd position at the moment. McCann still keeping Waugh at bay. And Lewis Clark has checked out into the distance, looking for yet another victory in 2024. But absolutely flying throughout this season. And seems to be in the strongest place possible. Having taken pole position earlier on in the day, having taken the victory earlier on in the day, it looks like it will be yet another clean sweep for Lewis Clark. For everyone else, though, the fighting is still on, and there is no time to breathe as they head their way through onto the start-finish straight, down into turn 1 for the final time this weekend. And for the final time of the season, of course, because as much as they raced Donington Park earlier on in the year, this is the last time they do race. They go racing at Snetterton in a few weeks' time, where they'll round out the Focus Cup of 2024. Down the hill they go into the Craners, and it is looking not just good for Clark, but it's looking good for McCann now. Has held a half a second margin to Waugh, and to be fair, it's about a second back to Richard Hall as well. Any mistake and that will switch round, but at the moment it does seem as though McCann will be grabbing the podium right now. But of course, easier said than done as they work their way now up the hill. Where is the opportunity going to come for Simon Waugh? Is there an opportunity for Simon Waugh? That's the bigger question right now. Got the fog at ES, you've got the Melbourne hairpin, you've got Goddard's. Those are the 3 corners that end this lap. That is the only opportunity you get. And when it comes to visuals, you don't have too much when it comes to brake markers down here, especially not when you're being blinded by the sun. Into the brakes, into the corner, into the curb as well, and out through the corner they go. McCann perfecting that line at the moment to hang on to 2nd position, just not putting a foot wrong and not giving any opportunity to Simon Waugh. Well, the 2024 title, it seemed pretty much set and sorted when we came into this round at Donington Park. It certainly is sorted, as the number 1 Lewis Clark will become the 2024 champion. But not only that, will take yet another clean sweep. Pole position, race victory in race 1, race victory in race 2. For the 4th time this year, Lewis Clark will clean sweep the weekend. An absolutely stunning performance from Clark. Another victory for him and a championship as well. That number 1 will be staying with Clark into 2025. Then, of course, across the line, it'll be McCann and Waugh to round out the podium after an incredible performance. Richard Hall will have to settle for 4th. Jamie Good all the way up to 5th position after struggling down the order. The rest of them will cross the line. Did see that Walton, of course, Simon Walton will be into the pit lane. Again, that car will drop down as much as it had the fast lap. We said before, time and time again, it is testing this weekend. That's why it says test car on it. It's not eligible for points this weekend. And that's why they're bailed from the race to come into the pit lane, because what's the point in doing a cool-down lap when you've already done what you needed to do? There, though, is, of course, your champion, your driver, race winner for this race. Absolutely superb performance all weekend, all year long. Started out the race, the season, with a pole position and 2 race victories. Went to Brands Hatch, pole position, 2 race victories. Went to Alton Park, you'll never guess it. Pole position, 2 race victories. Absolutely incredible. Didn't get pole position or 2 race victories at Silverstone or Croft, though, so, you know, not a perfect season. However, comes back to Donington Park. Clearly loves MSV circuits. Donington, Brands Hatch, Alton Park, MSV circuits. Donington Park here again, another MSV circuit. So at Snetterton, I'm expecting a pole position and 2 race victories for Lewis Clark. The only thing is he's not taken all of the fastest laps, because he missed the fastest lap at Alton Park, and I'm pretty sure he's missed the fastest lap. Depends on how you define the fastest laps this weekend. He's definitely had both of them in class, so I think it would be fine for him to be classified as that. We'll take a look at the provisional results in a second, of course. Race control still might have to take a couple of looks at various bits as well, so we'll have to hold fire on that one. But of course, the 2023 champion, Lewis Clark, almost certain to take that victory. There are your provisional results then. So it's Lewis Clark taking the victory in stunning form as he is crowned champion provisionally, of course. Then, of course, it is McCann in Mark McCann, who takes 2nd position. Simon Waugh will take 3rd position, with Richard Hall taking 4th. Jamie Good in 5th spot with the number 20 of Simon Walton taking 6th spot. Well, will drop down the order, so everyone else behind will be promoted a position. Darren Rickaby will be up to 6th position. Then Langford, Casillo and Brown inside the top 10. Of course, those in the positions behind 11th on back, where we saw our fair shares of drama. We'll, of course, see Lincoln, who will be in 11th position. Then it's Abby Walton, who is in 12th. Gray in 13th. Graham in 14th position, with Sarah Hall taking 15th position. Mitchell finishing a lap down. Saw him in the pit lane a little bit. And of course, Watts there in 17th position. Weiss was in the gravel trap earlier on in the race. And Jonathan Baker didn't make it even to turn 1, unfortunately, despite an excellent showing earlier on in the day. We'll have to settle just for 19th and a retirement from the final race here at Donington Park. Of course, we are back in not too long, of course, at Snetterton on the 5th of October in what will be an excellent season finale for us, I have absolutely no doubt. Lewis Clark, though, has been an absolutely phenomenal driver throughout the season. Will take the 2024 championship and hopefully will still contest that season finale on the 5th of October at Snetterton. We will see you there. Thank you so much for joining us. Goodbye.